Hello, Highlanders. This is Highlander Hot Talk Basketball. I'm Seth Myers, and I'm joined today by Isaac Solnick, the managing editor of the Highlander, as well as KUCR broadcaster. Isaac, tell us what we're going over today.
Yeah, Seth, really excited to talk with you today. Today we're going to be talking about last week, and we're going to talk about men's and women's basketball today, and we're going to talk about their games Thursday against UCI and their games on Saturday against UC Davis.
So the UCR going into those, they were 7 and 14. UCR men's was 7 and 12 going into those games. Now they're 7 and 14. They're 2 and 7 in conference right now. They're on a 2-game losing streak, but I don't think that that's indicative of how they played. Again, unfortunately, you play one of the best teams in the conference, two of the best teams really in the conference.
Absolutely.
UCI is a hard-fought battle. It was 38-33 going into that first half. UCR was really keeping it even with them. And yeah, that first half was rough. It was definitely just a battle. We looked good though, so that's something that you can kind of build off of.
Yeah, there are a lot of good things that I liked from that UCI game, right? We, in the second half, they went on that huge run to start the second half, and the game was kind of over from there. But there's a lot that I liked that I saw from UCI that game. I thought Worthy had a really good game.
Yeah.
And, I thought he had a really tough matchup going against guys like Tama Isaac and Darren Saran from UCI. I mean, they've got a whole load of guards that they can go to, and Worthy was, doing a really good job, playing all those minutes and being consistent throughout. He was also a great energy guy. He hit a couple threes that really got the team going in the second half, got us kind of back into it, so the score wasn't as ugly as it could have been. But I really liked Worthy's game in that one.
Yeah, he had 22 against UCI, and it was hard to watch because you want to believe in the second half that you're going to have another guy heat up. Maybe Henderson, maybe, Colley can get you some buckets in the paint, which he did, but it's hard when it's really just one guy who heats up, and sometimes you're going to have games like that, UCI has a really good defense. We've seen that in the past.
Absolutely.
And, Marquis was really the only guy who was able to heat up. He was finding his spots. He had great off-ball movement. And he was also the leading scorer against UC Davis in the next game. And, you want a guy like that to stay hot. It speaks to his, again, his work ethic. He's a hustle player. And for him to do that against two of the best teams in the conference, it's something that you want to see from a junior who was kind of spotty beginning of the season, and his potential. That he can score 20 a night, but you definitely you need to get him some help on those big games, especially going into the latter half of the season. You're going to have a whole bunch of Big West matchups, so that's definitely something that we need to look out for. I believe in this team. It's we're 2 and 7, but we still have a handful of Big West games coming up, and if you win, I think we have something like 8 games left.
8 or 9, yeah.
8 or 9. If you win 4 or 5 out of those, I think you have still a good chance of going to the Big West tournament. You want to solidify that 6th spot, and so that's what they're searching for right now. You take a deeper dive into that UCI second half, and you see how they came out in the second half, and it was just they went on a complete run there, right?
Yeah. The championship mentality, I think that UCI have.
Yeah.
Right? Russell Turner's been with that program for 16 years, and so I think it really showed the difference between Arginal in his first year, really trying to build a culture, and then Turner, who's really built a championship pedigree at UCI, right? So when the games are going to be tough, UCI are going to turn up. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite there for UCI that game. Yeah. But what I really liked is when they went on that run, right? Arginal has these guys in a never say die, kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
They were down 20, but we brought it back to, I think,
at one point in the game. Yeah. I checked the score. I was at another job. I had to watch the game back, but I checked the score, and they had brought it back to 8 or 9, and then Marquis was really battling. That was something it's something. Again, I talk about Marquis' hustle all the time. He goes until the last minute. When I was watching the game back, he's hitting huge threes in that second half of the second half to try to cut it back, and you can only do so much as one player though, especially against that really good defense, and they they game planned for the second half. They went into the locker room, found something that could expose us. But definitely in that first half, you want to talk about Gus's coaching. In his first year, to be able to game plan like that so well, you can tell that team was ready for what UCI had to bring out. And that's why it was such a battle in the first half, is because Gus really coached a great first half. Now it's just, keeping the guys up, especially when Gus doesn't go into his bag too often to pull out players from the bench. Guys get tired, and that's just something that we've seen with UCR and that they've had to deal with. But Gus wants to keep the guys that are going to win him the game on the court, and that's something that you can tell with him as a coach, is he is going to put a guy in that keeps them in the game. And that's why Marquis Worthy has so many minutes. He's still first in minutes, I think, in the Big West, and, by a pretty large margin, I think, too. So it's just, it's going to be a battle with teams like that. UCR is always going to battle to the last minute, though.
Yeah, with Gus, it's like he's only going to put out guys on the court that he trusts, right?
Yeah.
But I think, we said it before, as the season goes on, we expect UCR to get better, right? All the teams are going to get better. I think UCR, out of all the Big West teams, are going to get the most better.
Yeah.
As one way to put it, because it's a new coach, new system, players are going to gel. But also, Arsenal, he's just getting Petit back, right?
Yeah.
And Petit, he's played about 20 minutes in these last couple games. I would expect him to get ramp that up as the season goes on, as he gets healthier. And then Ben Waller, Ben Waller's really emerged, especially this past weekend. I think he's really flashed, his athleticism, but also his ability to knock down shots and play really good defense too.
Yeah, there was that one clip of him, just that crazy dunk that he had against Fullerton, I believe it was. That was insane. That was a nice dunk. You saw Andrew Henderson spin into one too. Mm-hmm. That was posted all over social media. We'll see if we can get that in here. But that was something that you love to see from a true freshman, right? It's almost like a rookie sensation. He's just so electric on the court.
Oh yeah.
Again, super Australian.
Very Australian.
We should find a name for him and Hannah, Australian sensation or something like that. We got to figure out a nickname, because they are lighting it up, and a lot of Australian talent this year. Which
Michaela Minshaw too.
Michaela Minshaw. Oh yeah, no, Michaela Minshaw is my. I don't know. It's between her and Wickstrom right now for my favorite player on that women's team, because they just Wickstrom popped off for 30 points against UCI, but we'll mention that later. Another thing with that UC Davis game. If you're good to move on into that, that Davis game definitely was played within the paint for a lot of it. Marquis had 18, and BJ Colley, I think he had 10 in that game.
Yeah, 10.
That's what you want to see from him, though. He's a facilitator, like I've mentioned in the past, but definitely he's an easy bucket. He's going to get the ball in the paint, and he's so big that he just kind of overpowers guys. And, he's an easy lay, and that's something that you want to see from him for sure.
Yeah, UC Davis, when you go into Davis, you play the Aggies, it's going to be a slower paced game.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, the team were and Gus especially were prepared for that. I'm wondering, Seth, what did you make of kind of OG coming off the bench these last two games, right? Because we've seen him start, mostly, but, still getting, 25 minutes against Davis. Kind of, what do you make of this kind of new role?
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. JDD and OG play, I don't want to say they play similarly, but I think JDD kind of is another off-ball guy, and he kind of makes the right moves in the paint. He's going to, lock down the paint, especially when Colley's off. But OG is somebody that I just think he's a completely he's a team guy. When he comes off the bench, he's not mad that he's coming off the bench. He comes off the bench and he plays as hard as he can, and that's something that I can really appreciate, because he could be a starter. In this system, he could be a starter. I think the reason that Gus has him coming off the bench is because when BJ Colley goes to sit down, you can't have a tired Osiris Grady out there. Right? You have to have a guy who's fresh, who can lock down the paint with JDD, and OG is as of right now, when Tobaloba's out and you don't have a lot of other bigs that can compete with other bigs. You need a fresh OG in there. You know, BJ's a graduate student. You only have 1 year of him, but you could have another year of OG. You hope to have another year of OG. And when he can lock down the paint like that next year, you know, going up against these, bigger forwards and these centers, he's going to have an easier time locking down, and you want to see him play for longer. And so, he's coming off the bench, but really, him and Henderson came off the bench in the last game too. I mean, you think about that and you think like, they're not coming off the bench because they messed up or anything. They're coming off the bench because really they're like starters that come in for guys, and you don't lose a step in that. Those guys are proven starters. Henderson is a proven starter. He was averaging close to like 18 in the beginning of the season, and he's still a guy who can pop off and be your leading scorer every game. OG is another guy who can pop off and be, second or third in that scoring list, but brings such a presence defensively. And, he's a rebounder. He's another grit guy. And so when BJ Colley comes off, which is inevitable, you see OG had 25 minutes because BJ, he's a big guy. He's got to come off the court. When OG comes in, you don't lose a step because him and JDD are like very, very, very similar in the fact that they lock down defensively and then they go on the other side of the court and they're, screening, they're running off pick and rolls, stuff like that. And that's something that you want to see from OG going forward. And he's kind of embraced his role off the bench. And I appreciate that as a fan, as somebody who watches the games. Like he really goes hard no matter what.
I think with OG coming off the bench, I think a big part of it is, right, you mentioned with Colley, right? He's such a physical presence inside, and, he gets all those blocks, and he defends interior like really, really well. But, that's going to lead to a lot of fouls, right? And I think a big reason that, and it's not just to keep OG fresh, but it's also to keep BJ Colley kind of out of foul trouble too. If he can, if Coach Gus can, interchange the two of them and keep, BJ, available to end the game, right? He fouled against UC Davis, but, if it could have been worse, right? Say he starts OG, starts Colley gets in foul trouble. You have a tired OG out there, like you said. I think it could have been trouble. I think for the Highlanders.
And so it's another one of those things. You saw everybody was in foul trouble against Fullerton. That was almost disastrous because you had a big lead going into that second half of the second half. So really the third quarter. But you have that big lead, and if Colley fouls out, if OG fouls out, Tyler Jones was in foul trouble. If any one of those guys fouls out, that changes the game a lot. And I don't think you have nearly the defensive presence or the rebounding that you have in that game to really close it out that you need. And, Gus would have had to throw in a guy like a
Dylan Godfrey.
Yeah, Dylan Godfrey, who we know is a great player, and he's a guy who can stretch the court. But, he's a knockdown shooter, and his defensive thing is not so much in the paint. He's great on closeout, but, it's going to be tough for him to fill a role of an OG because they play so differently.
Right, yeah. Yeah, with Tobaloba out, I think it's crucial that Gus keeps at least one of those guys on the court at all times, Grady or Colley.
Yeah. And then you've got Long Beach and Cal Poly this week. You've seen Long Beach. They've got a banged up Gavin Sykes right now, which is it's good for the Highlanders. You want to take that game. You want to take as many games as you can. Gavin Sykes, he had a good game last time against us, I believe.
He had a very good game.
Yeah, and so that was kind of tough.
He had 16 and 6.
Yeah,
that game,
that's a hard player to face, and the fact that he's banged up kind of opens up, not only because he scored 16 and 6 assists, he's going to have a lot of presence just off ball, again, because you have to guard him so closely because he's a big scorer, and so, when he's banged up, you have more options. The Highlanders have more options to kind of defend. You can kind of spread out the defense, and he's also a great defender. Very underrated defender in the league, Gavin Sykes. So, you're going to have more offensive presence when he's out.
Yeah, playing Long Beach State, that's a tough place to play in, right? We played them there last time.
The pyramid.
And so, it's the pyramid, it's a tough place to play. So this one's going to be at the SRC Arena for the men's basketball team. So I think that's going to play a huge factor. And like you said, right, with Sykes being out too, that's going to make a whole world of difference. But the thing against Long Beach State, right, it's no excuses, right? Just like the Highlanders, it's a completely new team for Long Beach State, right? So, if you're Gus and you're the Highlanders, you just got to go into that one, with a clean slate, just shake off the losses and kind of do what you got to do, get the job done.
Yeah, so
Long Beach.
That's definitely the plan there. And then you've got Cal Poly. You beat them last time. You want to see Marquis heat up again like he has in the past 2 games and like he did against Cal Poly. He had a great game against Cal Poly. I think he had 24 or 26, something like that in that game. Henderson heated up at the end as well. And they held the lead for a long time in that game. And then towards the end, again, guys got tired because that's just the type of offense that they run. They run it nonstop. They run all gas, no brakes. And so guys are going to get tired towards the end. And you saw that against Cal Poly. They kind of slowed down a little bit, couldn't really get the foot on the neck there. And, Cal Poly ended up scoring a few threes, and they really drove inside with his name is slipping my mind right now. But he's like one of the best players in the Big West. So he's really like, he tore us up last time too.
Oh, Haman Musa. That's
we were talking about him in the car the other day. He's a dog. So he's going to come over here and hopefully we can lock him down. But I think he's their leading scorer right now.
Yeah, not just him, but Bondo too, the Serbian guard. He's a problem too. He pushes the pace, right? And like you said, the UCR offense is all gas, no brakes. So is the Cal Poly offense, right? And it's gonna be interesting to see which team runs out of gas first. And right, last time it was, we ran out of gas first, but fortunately we were still able to hang on. We'll see in a different environment, at Cal Poly, we'll see how that one goes down. Yeah,
and then moving on to the girls' games, they, as we said, they played UCI and UC Davis as well. They played Fullerton earlier in that, and I don't think we got to talk about that game, but played a really tough fought game against Fullerton. Obviously came up short there. Another Hannah Wickstrom masterclass. She had 20-something, 28, I think.
Yeah, 28 against Fullerton. Yeah.
So she's popping off almost every night. And then we'll move on to the more recent games though, because I definitely want to cover those. They played UCI, battle to the last minute. That's a tough loss, but I like to consider that a good loss.
Absolutely.
You saw where you came earlier in the season to where you are now, and there's obviously like a huge difference there. Earlier in the season, that was a tough loss. That was probably like one of those benchmark losses, and now you play them just now, and that's a good loss. You saw how far you came. You battled to the last minute, and then again, it's more just about closing out that game.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that people haven't really talked about too much when it came to that game against UCI is that our women's basketball team have had UCI's women's basketball team's number in Irvine these past few years, and I think this year that UCI, they had that game kind of scheduled on their calendar, so they were going to come out hard for that game regardless, and that's not even talking about the fact that they have maybe one of the best players in the Big West and Hunter Hernandez too. Yeah, so that was always going to be a tough game for us.
Yeah, she's got 1,000 points. She's in the 1,000-point club. That's a feat not many others. I think it's very slim in the Big West. I thought it was like four others or something like that. Can't remember the exact number, but going into these next few games, they're 6-13 and they're 4-5 in conference. So very, very solidified in the middle of the pack. But then again, they have a numerous amount of games coming up. They could still go for, like a 4 seed, a 3 seed, if they really start to win out. But you got to beat teams like Davis and stuff like that when you play them for a second time. When they played at UCI, it got down to it, and I think Wickstrom had 30.
She had 30 in the game, yeah.
And then I think, what was it, Polk that had 13?
Swanson had around 15.
Swanson had 14, Polk had 13. That's what I remember the stat line being. And, you get help like that, but you really need somebody else to have 20. In a game like that against UCI, you need another person to have 20. Yeah. And, you know, it's a really young team, barring Seneca Hackley and Bria Shine. And, you know, those two are really the only starters that are graduates right now. And then you have Dushman, who's a senior, but she's out right now. You've got Aaliyah Stanton, who's a junior. She's out right now. And so losing those two players are huge. But again, you have a whole bunch of freshmen, sophomores stepping up, a whole bunch of, you know, transfers stepping up. And that's something that you like to see for sure.
Yeah, you know, you talk about Wickstrom, you talk about Swanson, you talk about Polk. You know, I'm looking at the box score right now, and there just wasn't enough points from enough places.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, right? We got 2 points off the bench in that game from Minshaw. And, yeah, you just can't beat a team like UCI like that. It's got to be a whole team effort.
Yeah.
Right? UCI, they're 8-0 for a reason. And as good as a player of Hannah Wickstrom is, and as a player as, you know, Swanson and Polk are, that's just not going to be enough to beat a team like UCI and the talent they have.
Yeah. It's definitely, again, it's a good loss, though. You know, you battle back like that in a game where, you know, earlier in the season you lose by close to 20, and then this game you come back and you lose by, what, like 6?
6, yeah.
So, and you were winning up until the last few minutes. That's... there's something to be said about that for sure. And Brad's coached this team up to a point where, like, even over adversity, they are performing at a very high level. That UC Davis game, that was a rough one. That's a rough loss. In that first half, they really came out swinging. You could tell that UC Davis was really prepared for what the Highlanders had to bring to them, and they didn't really have a response for Sussex and Young just knocking down threes at a consistent rate. You know, you close out on one, you leave the other open, and that's bang, knock down 3. Then they started to close out on the perimeter, and Davis just started exposing that one lane. It was specifically one lane on the left side that I saw them go down about, I don't know, like 10 times in that first half, and it was just an easy lay every time. So you definitely got to figure that out. That's something that if you want to make the Big West, not only make the Big West, but if you want to succeed in that Big West tournament, you're going to have to figure out the small things like that. Like, you know, you close out on a player, and then how do you recover from that? And then if they, you know, make a fast break down the lane, you gotta be able to defend that, especially when Bria Shine is off, right? I know you've got, by the way, official apology issued to Janaba Sila. Right here. I'm taking accountability. I did not pronounce your last name right or your first name right. That is horrible, and that should be amended right here. But Janaba Sila, again, in that game, actually, like, she did lock down that middle, and that's something that, you know, she kind of set a precedent for Morena Tayon, and, you know, that's a good role model right there to, you know, you've got Bria Shine and Sila paving the way for Morena Tayon. And as a freshman, she's going to be so much better as a senior because of that. And, you know, you see that in UC Davis. When you struggle like that in the paint, it's going to be hard. But, you know, you saw Janaba kind of lead that for Morena Tayon. And that's something that, you know, you struggle with as a freshman. But once you know, kind of work into the fast pace of Division I basketball, you'll recover.
Yeah, right. It's all about the little things, right? When it comes to, we know Moreno Tayon is such a talented player, right? She's shown it many different times. You know how, you know, she can set screens, she can play defense, she can play both ways, she can get up and down the court. But right, it's like the little things, like you said, right? Kind of how Davis were kind of exposing us, you know, down that left flank in that game, right? And how you're gonna. And, you know, the players in the Big West are really good. The girls in the Big West are really good. And Moreno Tayon, she's still kind of figuring things out. But, you know, to have mentors like Bria and Janeba, for her is going to be super valuable for her in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're going to move on to the next games that they have coming up. So right now in the Big West, they are, I want to say they're 7th, right? So you've got Irvine, San Diego, Santa Barbara, Davis, Cal State Fullerton, Hawaii, and then UC Riverside. So I did not count correctly. Yeah, they are 7th. Okay, and then next games you've got, again, Long Beach and Cal Poly, both teams that you've beaten in the past. Both teams are beneath you in the rankings. Definitely can't underestimate them, though. That Cal Poly team, again, has grown a lot. Their record doesn't reflect it, but if you watch their games, it's different from looking at a box score, right? The eye test will tell you a lot more than a box score will most of the time. And in those Cal Poly games, they're a really talented team, and you can't
They're a
overlook
well-coached
them.
team, too, that Cal Poly team. I think that's what makes them so dangerous.
For sure. And then that Long Beach team, you played them pretty recently, and then for them to still have that in the back of their mind and come back, and you're playing them at their pyramid, that's going to be a tough game. Again, we talked about how tough the pyramid is. Even when you go there and you've already beaten a team, that might be even worse. Like, they're going to have that marked off on their calendar, like, hey, we've played all these Big West teams, we've lost a lot of these games, we're going to mark it down on our calendar, and we're going to come back and we're going to beat a lot of those teams. So that's their mindset right now. You got to go in to the pyramid and you have to start hot and end hot. You cannot let your foot off the gas.
Absolutely, and especially when Long Beach State, they got a player like Jacoya Jones-Brown on that team, right? She can get hot quickly, and Long Beach State, without Michael Richards this season, they've kind of just given Jacoya Jones-Brown the ball and just kind of let her go to work, and they've kind of lived and died by her. But if she gets hot that game, anything happen, right? In the pyramid too, the pyramid gets rocking. You start off slow, it's a very big trap game, that Long Beach State game. Yeah,
and it's going to be again, those two games are going to be kind of like must wins if you want to secure yourself in that middle of the pack, kind of Big West standing for, not middle of the pack in rankings, middle of the pack in that Big West tournament rankings, right? You want to be not maybe the 6th seed. You could still go for a 3 or 4 seed.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that's what Brad's thinking right now. That's what he wants to do. Definitely eyes set on the Big West tournament if you can pull out a few wins here. And I think that's what they're going to do. That's what their mindset is. They want to go to Long Beach, go to Cal Poly, then go back to Fullerton, upset Fullerton. And that's the current outlook for them right now. But definitely going into these next few games, not really so much as must wins, but you kind of need to win them, again, to secure that. And then for the guys, pretty much must wins right now, because you want to beat Long Beach while they're banged up. You want to beat Cal Poly again. You kind of have to solidify that sweep.
Yeah, with the men's, it's they're 2-7, right? It's kind of a now or never kind of time. They got to pick up a win. Yeah. And not just for the record, but also just to build up some momentum, and like we said, they're going to get better. And I think getting Petit back is going to just be a huge lift for them. Not just what he brings to the table with his offense, his defense, his playmaking, but also just taking a lot of weight off the shoulders of guys like Marquis Worthy and Andrew Henderson too, Tyler Jones as well.
And that's definitely something to look for. All right, Highlanders, that's all we have for today. Thank you for watching Highlander Hot Talk Basketball. I'm Seth Myers, and this is Isaac Solnick from KUCR and the Highlander Managing Editor. See you later.